Does the persistent echo of past wounds, particularly those tied to the foundational relationship with your mother, sometimes convince you that true healing remains elusive until every nuance of that bond is perfectly dissected and understood? This agonizing question often traps individuals in an endless loop of analysis, postponing their own recovery. Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the human psyche and the individuation process, recognized that while early experiences shape us, ultimate healing is an internal, sovereign journey, not an external dependency on perfectly understanding or fixing another. Society, often influenced by oversimplified psychological narratives, frequently encourages a perpetual focus on parental figures as the sole key to unlocking personal freedom, inadvertently fostering a blame culture that discourages individuals from taking charge of their own healing. To remain perpetually fixated on the past, to believe that your liberation hinges solely on understanding someone else, is a path that, while offering a sense of explanatory comfort, ultimately perpetuates stagnation and delays the vital work of self-reclamation. You may find yourself caught in this very cycle, endlessly analyzing your maternal relationship, meticulously uncovering every perceived slight or deficit, convinced that complete understanding of this dynamic is the prerequisite for your own emotional liberation. This relentless intellectual pursuit, this belief that your healing depends solely on understanding your mother, can consume your energy, exacerbate resentments, and prevent you from engaging in the active, internal work necessary for genuine recovery. This video is not a dismissal of the impact of early relationships. It is an immersive journey into the psychological principles of autonomous healing, a practical manual to identify, interpret, and ultimately transcend the limiting belief that your well-being is contingent upon fully comprehending or rectifying your maternal bond. Prepare yourself, for the wisdom you are about to receive promises a transformative unveiling of your inherent capacity for self-healing and the true path to inner sovereignty. The first principle we must grasp, often obscured by the magnetic pull of the past, is the principle of the autonomous psyche. This dictates that while early experiences and foundational relationships leave an indelible mark, your psyche possesses an inherent autonomous drive towards wholeness and self-regulation. True healing is an internal process of integration, not an external dependency on perfect understanding or retroactive validation from another person, even your mother. Your capacity for repair resides within you, a dynamic force ready to be engaged, independent of external conditions or complete past understanding. This insidious principle connects intimately with Jung's concept of the self, the regulating center of the psyche, which always strives for wholeness and integration, even in the face of developmental deficits. Consider the ancient myth of the wounded healer, who, despite their own profound injuries, possessed an innate ability to heal themselves and others. Their power did not come from perfectly understanding the origins of their wound, but from engaging with their own inherent capacity for regeneration. This archetype illustrates that while the wound may have an external source, the healing power resides fundamentally within the individual, an autonomous process that seeks completion. In the contemporary landscape, this principle manifests often, though subtly challenged by popular narratives. Individuals who meticulously recount every perceived maternal failing, convinced that understanding these acts will instantly heal them, often find themselves stuck in a loop of intellectualization without genuine emotional release. Conversely, those who, without a complete narrative, engage in practices like self-compassion, somatic release, or creative expression, often experience profound healing simply by tapping into their own internal resources. The continuous retelling and analysis of past hurts, without a shift to internal agency, inadvertently disempowers the autonomous healing process. To truly leverage this principle, consciously shift your focus from external analysis to internal engagement. When you find yourself obsessing over past maternal dynamics, pause and ask, while this understanding might be helpful, is my core healing dependent solely on perfect comprehension of her actions, or can I begin the work of inner integration? Regardless, begin by cultivating practices that empower your inner resources, mindful presence, self-compassion meditations, or engaging in creative acts that express and integrate your emotions. This disciplined focus on your own autonomous capacity for healing will gradually reduce your reliance on external understanding as the sole key to your well-being. The second principle, often creating immense stagnation, is the principle of the shadow of perpetual victimhood. This posits that while genuinely painful, an over-identification with past hurts, particularly those tied to maternal figures, can unconsciously lead to a subtle victim mentality. This is not to diminish real suffering, but to recognize that if healing is always presented as contingent upon an external understanding or apology that may never come, one remains perpetually in a state of powerlessness. This dynamic can paradoxically provide a perverse comfort in its familiarity, preventing the courageous step into self-responsibility for one's own emotional landscape. This principle directly relates to Jung's concept of the shadow, particularly the unintegrated aspects of powerlessness, resentment, or a fear of self-sovereignty. When we remain in a victim stance, we unconsciously give away our power to the past or to another person. Recall the Greek myth of Demeter, whose profound grief over the abduction of her daughter Persephone led to a winter that consumed the world. While her pain was legitimate, her inability to move beyond it threatened all life. Her healing and the return of spring depended on a cosmic agreement, but it also reflects the power of the individual to, at some point, release the grip of perpetual suffering for the sake of renewed life. In modern society, this manifests with heartbreaking frequency. Individuals might perpetually narrate their childhood wounds, expecting others to validate their suffering endlessly, while resisting any steps towards personal agency or self-care. Therapists often observe clients who, despite years of analyzing parental dynamics, remain stuck because they are unwilling to shift from external blame to internal self-responsibility. This continuous focus on external blame, even if subtly expressed, drains personal energy and prevents the necessary inner work of transformation. To overcome this painful illusion, begin by consciously separating the experience of past pain from the ongoing identification with the victim role. When you find yourself dwelling on past maternal failings, pause and ask, is my energy currently directed towards understanding what happened, or towards perpetuating a narrative that keeps me disempowered? Practice consciously reclaiming your power by focusing on what you can do now to nurture yourself, irrespective of past deficits. Engage in acts of radical self-compassion, recognizing that you are capable of providing the care and validation you may have lacked, thereby moving from a state of passive suffering to active healing. The third principle, often delaying genuine emotional processing, is the principle of the transference of the archetypal mother. This posits that the figure of your biological mother is often a specific manifestation of the universal archetypal mother, the principle of nurture, security, and containment. When our lived experience with our biological mother falls short, we unconsciously project our unmet archetypal needs onto her, endlessly seeking to fix or understand her to fulfill our deep-seated, universal yearning for perfect maternal care. Your healing depends not on perfectly understanding her individual personality, but on integrating the archetypal mother principle within yourself. This deep-seated principle is closely linked to Jung's understanding of archetypes and the collective unconscious. The archetypal mother is a powerful, primal image of creation and sustenance. If our personal mother falls short of this ideal, we can become fixated on her, endlessly trying to get her to embody the archetype. Consider the countless myths where heroes embark on quests not for their actual mother, but for a lost or idealized feminine principle, a magical elixir, or a sacred vessel representing the archetypal mother's nourishing power. Their healing was found not in perfectly dissecting their personal maternal history, but in finding and integrating the source of nurturing within themselves or in the broader cosmos. This manifests profoundly in contemporary life. Someone might endlessly seek their mother's approval, even as an adult, believing that this external validation will finally fill an internal void, rather than recognizing it as an unmet archetypal need for unconditional acceptance. Individuals might be stuck in therapy, replaying childhood scenes, convinced that fully dissecting their mother's every action will provide the missing key, rather than recognizing the archetypal pattern of seeking the perfect mother outside themselves. This continuous external quest for an idealized maternal figure prevents the internal integration of the nurturing principle within one's own psyche. To liberate yourself from this restrictive pattern, consciously differentiate between your biological mother as an individual and the universal archetypal mother. When you find yourself seeking understanding or validation from your personal mother for past wounds, pause and ask, am I trying to get her to be the perfect mother for me now, even if she cannot be? How can I begin to cultivate the qualities of the archetypal mother: self-nurturing, self-acceptance, unconditional love within my own being? Practice mothering yourself, providing the care, boundaries, and validation you longed for. This conscious integration of the archetypal mother principle within yourself will free you from the endless pursuit of external maternal perfection. If you're finding this profound exploration of healing and its personal locus to be insightful, and believe this message resonates with your quest for true self-sovereignty, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications so you don't miss any content that will further empower your journey towards authentic self-reclamation. If you feel a persistent yearning to break free from the chains of past narratives, to finally move beyond a dependent framework of healing and embrace your innate capacity for wholeness, know that this inner calling is not a fantasy, it's your authentic self preparing for a profound liberation, a reclaiming of inherent agency, and a truly autonomous path to well-being. There are potent principles and practices that can illuminate this path of autonomy and self-affirmation, empowering you to live with an unshakable clarity and a profound sense of purpose. In the pinned comment, we have made available resources that were carefully crafted for souls like yours, ready to experience their most profound personal revolution. We have begun to unveil the profound truths about autonomous healing, moving beyond the limiting belief that your recovery is solely contingent upon understanding your mother. You've seen how the autonomous psyche, the shadow of victimhood, and the transference of archetypal needs can trap you in patterns that delay true healing. But these are merely the foundational insights. Now, we delve into the more complex, yet equally vital, principles that, once understood, unlock even deeper levels of personal freedom and resilience, allowing you to become the primary agent of your own well-being. The coming insights are not for the faint of heart. They require a courageous willingness to confront the hard truths of self-responsibility. The fourth principle, often camouflaged by a desire for closure, is the principle of the living complex, not the static past. This posits that the past, particularly traumatic or unresolved maternal dynamics, does not remain static. It lives within you as a dynamic complex, a cluster of emotionally charged ideas and images that continues to influence your present reactions and perceptions. Your healing depends not on perfectly dissecting the historical events, but on actively engaging with and integrating the living complex within you, transforming its unconscious power over your present. The mother of the past is no longer simply your mother. She is an internal, complex, demanding conscious integration. This perspective challenges a purely linear view of healing, emphasizing the dynamic, ongoing nature of psychological integration. It is intimately tied to Jung's theory of complexes and how they can seize control of the ego if left unconscious. Consider the archetype of the ghost or unlaid spirit in folklore, which cannot rest until its unfinished business is addressed. Similarly, an unintegrated maternal complex continues to haunt the present, influencing relationships, self-perception, and emotional responses. The healing comes not from endlessly recounting the ghost's history, but from actively working to release its grip on the living. This profound principle plays out in myriad ways in contemporary life, often unnoticed. Someone might repeatedly enter relationships with partners who mirror aspects of their mother's unhelpful patterns, not because they consciously seek it, but because the unintegrated maternal complex unconsciously draws them to familiar dynamics. Individuals might experience sudden, intense emotional reactions in adulthood that seem disproportionate to the present situation, revealing the activation of a living complex from their past. Even physical symptoms or chronic ailments can sometimes be the body's way of expressing an unintegrated emotional complex that originates from early life experiences. To embrace the principle of the living complex, shift your focus from merely understanding historical events to actively engaging with the feelings, images, and behaviors that the maternal complex evokes in your present. When a strong emotional reaction arises that feels disproportionate, pause and ask, is this feeling related to a living complex within me? What is it trying to tell me now, in the present moment? Engage in active imagination, somatic practices, or creative expression to dialogue with and integrate these internal energies. This conscious work with the living complex, rather than endless historical analysis, is key to transforming its power over your present. Finally, we encounter the most profound and often the most liberating shadow principle, the principle of the sovereign act of self-mothering. This posits that true and lasting healing from early developmental wounds, particularly those related to maternal care, ultimately rests on your conscious and consistent decision to become the primary, nurturing, protective, and validating figure. For yourself, this is not a substitution for external support, but a radical act of self-sovereignty, where you actively provide yourself with the unconditional acceptance, clear boundaries, and unwavering emotional support that may have been lacking in your foundational relationships. Your healing does not depend on your mother. It depends on you choosing to be the mother you always needed for yourself. This intricate principle transcends victimhood and moves into radical empowerment. It is the recognition that love and care are not solely external gifts, but capacities that can be cultivated and bestowed upon oneself. Jung spoke of the individuation process leading to a profound inner authority and self-regulation. Consider the archetype of the self-made hero or the wise woman who, through their own trials, developed an inner strength and resourcefulness that allowed them to navigate life with profound autonomy. Their power came not from external validation, but from becoming their own source of sustenance and guidance. This manifests in countless ways in contemporary life, profoundly impacting well-being. Individuals who consistently set healthy boundaries with others, despite discomfort, are engaging in an act of self-protection. Those who consistently prioritize self-care, even when others demand their time, are embodying self-nurturing. Someone who learns to soothe their own anxiety or offer themselves compassion during moments of self-doubt is actively performing an act of self-mothering, replacing the need for external validation with an internal wellspring of support to fully integrate the principle of the sovereign act of self-mothering. Commit to consciously providing yourself with the care, validation, and boundaries you wish you had received. When you feel a profound need for nurturing or protection, pause and ask, how can I mother myself in this moment? What would a perfectly nurturing parent do or say to me right now? Practice setting clear boundaries with those who drain your energy, prioritizing your own emotional and physical well-being. Engage in regular acts of self-compassion, affirming your worth and accepting your imperfections without judgment. This conscious and unwavering commitment to self-mothering, rather than endlessly seeking it from an external source or analyzing its absence in the past, is the ultimate path to complete and lasting healing. In the comments below, share which of these 5 principles of autonomous healing resonates most deeply with your own experience, and what small, actionable step you plan to take this week to begin self-mothering yourself. If this deep exploration of healing and the profound journey of self-sovereignty speaks to your soul, subscribe to the channel to continue unlocking the intricate secrets of the human psyche and cultivating a more profound understanding of your own inner strength. Your like is a powerful affirmation that this knowledge holds true value, and a clear signal that this journey of self-reclamation is one worth continuing together.